Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. This video is about 10 things I wish I would have known before starting my very first saltwater aquarium, and I hope that new people find this information useful before they jump right in. I currently have a 45-gallon saltwater tank, a 10-gallon saltwater tank, a 10-gallon freshwater tank, and a 2-gallon beta tank. I've been in the saltwater hobby since May of 2017, and I've had freshwater fish pretty much my whole life, so that makes it well over 20 years. So the very first thing before you go out and buy an aquarium is to make sure that you're getting the right aquarium for if you want freshwater or saltwater. Consider what you want to put in your tank prior to actually buying the tank. Some people just want fish, some people just want corals. Other people want a combination of the two, like a full-on living reef. And you don't want to be in a situation where you set up a tank, you made it cycle, you waited all this time for it to be established, and as soon as you start kind of working with it, you start seeing really cool stuff online, and you're like, wow, I wish I would have. So don't feel like you have to start off with a really small aquarium if you're new to the hobby. Go big if you want to. Just make sure that you have a vision for what you want your tank to look like. And a great way of doing that is by looking at different Instagrams or YouTube channels of people who have been in the hobby for a long time, and you can get a feel of what their tanks look like so that you know what your tank could be capable of. Choosing the right aquarium. It's really important that, before you just go out and buy an aquarium, that you know what you want. There are some aquariums that are really built for like saltwater equipment and mechanics, and then there's other ones that are just the tank itself, and then there's some that are probably more freshwater oriented. So just be really mindful of what you are getting to make sure that it's gonna go well with what you want. Here's a video of my very first aquarium. It was a 15-gallon aquarium that I picked up from PetSmart, and it was a column tank, and I thought it was really cool, and I thought it would look great in my apartment. But I was later on very disappointed when I realized that the clownfish that I chose for it really weren't happy in there. And there are some people who do keep clownfish in smaller aquariums, that's their prerogative, but I just knew that my fish weren't thriving and that they needed more of a horizontal space than a vertical space for them to thrive in. In order to make sure that my fish were thriving and not being stressed, I ultimately upgraded to a 45-gallon horizontal custom tank. I highly recommend that if you don't have experience in the hobby, you speak to a professional or go to your local fish store and ask them about different types of things that you can have in your tank so that you're not disappointed. Not everything can come right away, and not everything can just go into any tank with different livestock. Number 3, do your research on equipment. There's a lot of different opinions on what lights, what filters, what tank, what brands are the best. And I just think that most things work out for people, but there are some equipment brands out there that do have a reputation for breaking easily or not having a good customer service line. So I'm not going to name any names here, but I really do recommend that you do your research before you just go out and buy items for your tank. And don't try and cut corners. When it comes to equipment for your tank, it's always best to find reliable. Just be mindful that, your equipment is what keeps your tank alive. So that's just not something you want to skip out on. Lights. So lights can definitely be a controversial topic in the hobby. I definitely won't say that if you have weaker lights that you won't have success in the hobby, because I've seen people literally have some cheap lights that seem to work it out. But I will say that a lot of corals and some livestock such as clams do require stronger light. And it's not that your corals may die, there's a chance they can, but they may not thrive under weaker light. So just know that lights typically run somewhere between $200 and $300, and you want to make sure though, for what you have in your tank, you do have proper lighting. I've used Kessel and I've used Aqua Illumination. Those are kind of like the two top brands that are out there right now, and people seem to have a love for both. I currently am using my Aqua Illumination and I love them. They have all the weather effects and I love the timing and the mobility, so I don't have to worry about anything. But you know what, like everyone has their own opinion, but definitely for a new hobbyist, go to your local reef store or speak to somebody in the hobby who seems to have a successful tank and talk to them about lighting. Don't mess that up. Testing. So when it comes to being in the hobby, you have to know that your tank is stable. It's just something that has to be done. It can be a controversial topic because there are some people out there that are like, I never test, or I test weekly or monthly, or only when something seems to be going wrong. I'm not going to say how often you need to test. I think that just depends on you and your tank, but I do know that as you get your tank cycled and established, and when you put in your livestock, it's always a good idea just to check your parameters, because a lot of times things can be going wrong with the tank and you don't know until it's too late. But had you checked ahead of time, you could have possibly prevented it. And you can do like the test kits, you can use the electronic testers, and then there's the Apex system, which I'm getting, so I'm so excited. But basically, for a new person who doesn't know what they're doing, don't just set up your tank and think that it's all going to be fine because it's brand new. It's not. You definitely just want to have someone show you, do your research on it, or take your water to a local reef store if they're willing to test it for you, and definitely figure out what's going on with your tank. Speaking of testing parameters, I think it's really important that people understand some livestock needs a well-established tank before you put them in. For example, anemones. Most people agree that a tank should be established for at least a year before you add one in. There are some starfish out there that need an established sand bed and water quality. The last thing you really want to do is buy awesome livestock and then literally not have a stable, established tank and they don't make it. I think this is a hard one for a lot of people to accept in the hobby because we get excited, we want to rush it, we want to have a cool tank and beautiful stuff to look at, but it just comes with the territory, man. You can't rush it. It's not fair to the animals to put them in a situation where they're struggling, but also you don't want to waste the money and you don't want to go through the stress of losing something that's really awesome. So just be patient and definitely make sure your tank is established. Speaking of anemones, a lot of times new reefers love them, they want them, and sometimes they just pop them right in and they don't realize that anemones move. Unless you've actually had one before, or someone who's had one, or you've seen them really in action, they will move around. And so just be mindful that if you have corals in your tank, that the anemone is a predator and it can walk around and sting your corals, and then there goes that. The other thing when it comes to anemones is that they can sometimes let go while they're trying to find the perfect spot, or if they just want to move because that's just what they want to do. The foot of the anemone can sometimes detach from the rock and it can float around in your tank, once again stinging things in its path, or unfortunately sometimes it can get caught up in your power head. So it's really important that if you have a actual power head, you have an anemone guard on there, or if you have a wave maker, your wave maker's flat enough so that the anemone can't have its tentacles sucked into it, because then it will get destroyed, severely hurt, or completely chopped up, and your water will turn into poison, and you'll only have a short amount of time to change your water before all of your other livestock gets killed off. So when it comes to anemones, don't just throw one in without being prepared for things that could go wrong. Number 8, making your own saltwater. So this is another controversial topic, but some people they enjoy it. They have the machinery to do the RODI water, and they know which salt brands they want to use. Some people like to mix it overnight, some people mix for a few hours. Everyone has their own method. I made my own water for my 10-gallon when I tried to do a super nano tank, and it worked. I was really scared the first time I did it. It took me forever to get get comfortable with it and make me feel like I dissolved it. I think for a new hobbyist, a small nano tank, like, it's totally reasonable to do. I do highly recommend that you ask someone or watch it being done before you just attempt to do it on your own. But for me, when I tried to do it in my 45 gallon, that's where things just got crazy. I had a difficult time trying to keep up with the measurements, and I just realized really quickly that mixing water for anything over 10 gallons is not for me. Also, when it comes to the freshwater, please, whether you're making your own water or you're topping off, make sure it's RODI water. There's a lot of talk out there about people using bottled water, tap water, all sorts of things. And the reality is, if it's not RODI water, it could be toxic to your tank. It could create tons of algae issues, chemical issues, and even though your livestock might survive, they won't be thriving, and something likely will go wrong in the long run. So, just make sure that you have the proper water. If you don't know where to get it, most local reef stores or fish stores will sell it to you, and it's really not that expensive, in my opinion. But if you have the capability to make the machinery, that's totally cool. But I think it's more for the experienced person to do, not for like an initial person trying to do it on their own. Number 9, cost of corals. So if you don't already know, I will be the bearer of bad news and let you know that coral can be very, very expensive. I can't even sit here and go through the types of prices. Some corals can be $10 and some corals can be $5,000 or more, depending on the size, the color, where it's from, if they're still available on most markets, So I don't think that a new hobbyist should go out and, just buy the most expensive corals, even though they probably do look the coolest. Start with some hardier corals. There's a ton of information online on YouTube, on Google about like what corals are best for beginners. I'm not saying you have to just be stuck with GSP, even though I love GSP. I do think though that as you get your tanks stabilized and as you get comfortable with your lighting and making sure that everything is running smoothly, you should start with some like less expensive, very common pieces. Even with some fish are very rare, and certain colors are more expensive than others. So the whole hobby can be pricey. Number 10. Have fun. Even though this hobby is expensive and challenging and it feels like it takes forever to get what you really want out of it, find the fun in it. Like you're literally taking items and that normally live in the ocean and creating a habitat for it to survive out here. And for me, especially with global warming, it's really important that we master this on a major level so that we can make sure a lot of these corals and fish don't become extinct in the near future. It was really fun to entertain my guests with it. I went through law school and that took forever, and being able to come home to a beautiful reef, really just let me relax and enjoy coming home and enjoy just having a moment to think and not feel stressed out. I didn't even know that there were reef pages and stuff until the last year. And when I went to Reefapalooza, I met everyone at the social media meetup, and it was such a awesome thing to see so many people. We're all there because we really, really, really love coral. We love fish, we love aquariums, all of that. So I've actually found a whole community of people who really enjoy it and who are always so sweet, so nice. They're quick to answer questions, love to share photos back and forth. I strongly recommend that if there's a local reef show or one that's not too far for you to travel to, you definitely go check that out. Even if you're not fully established with the tank, even if you're still on the fence about it, just go look and go meet the people. And I'm pretty sure you're gonna fall in love with it just by going there. So make sure as you go through this journey, through the ups and downs, which we all have, that you really just enjoy the process, enjoy the beauty, and make friends with others. I currently have a Red Sea Reefer 425 XL cycling, and I'm really excited to have it up and running to show you guys at the end of the month. So that's all I have for now. Stay tuned till the next one.